So, I don't know if you can hear the synagogue praying downstairs. So, I don't really have a choice. And let's read the newspaper. Let's start with archaeology. So, this made the headline of the, Haaretz is criticized, but it's the only newspaper that actually finds archaeology important enough to publish it. So I don't know what's wrong with that. Okie dokie. So you hear this? A little bit about religion. So this was the headline. Sorry, I'm going to do it again. Oops, sorry. Meanwhile, shall we the cute dog? Weekend paper is really complicated. So it's all the earliest etchings in Levant. 120,000 years ago, what is today Israel? Somebody devoted great effort to etching 6 parallel lines on the bone of an arch. This discovery in the open-air Middle Paleolithic site of Nesher Ramla Israel is the oldest evidence of deliberate decoration in the Levant. So, moving on to another interesting, this is a guy called Artzi Ifrach, and he moved to Marrakesh. He's an Israeli fashion designer, and he moved to Marrakesh in Morocco. That's interesting. He says Paris is irrelevant, and these days you can be anywhere. So, from doves to lynch mobs, how the Haredi street turned racist and ultra-nationalist. Torch bus in Bnei Brak. This is the ultra-Orthodox. And there's a very interesting article. Pandemic was the promo. The complete film will destroy Israel. Terrible. So this is the proportion of ultra-Orthodox in each generation. Ultra-Orthodox are an extreme form of Judaism. So you see that in 2018, the proportion of children is 23%. One generation every 25 years. So this is Dan Ben David wrote. This is a professor of social economics. He says, I have no doubt that most people are inherently good, and that their share of good persons does not vary from one population group to another, irrespective of religion or ethnicity. The problem begins when good people are denied information and are brainwashed from birth. Few are able to withstand the ensuing psychological, social, and economic steamroller. We don't know everything, and faith definitely has a role to play. But as science advances and knowledge grows, faith's place needs to end where the facts begin. This is the basic foundation underlying the modern era. When faith replaces facts from kindergarten on top, it should not surprise anyone when there's no one to talk to after these children become adults. In the case of Israel's Haredim, ultra-Orthodox Jews, the problem is not with the believers, but the leaders who prevent information from entering their own community, and with our leaders who regard them as natural partners, enabling them to mortgage their future along with ours. How is it possible that those who extinguish the light provided by science and knowledge could be considered guardians of the faith for people with the most Nobel laureates per capita in science of any people, and a startup nation unparalleled relative to its size and innovation and technological breakthroughs? What kind of Judaism is being preached by those who do not even agree to the basic tenet of our faith, Pikuach Nefesh, biblical Hebrew expressing placing the sanctity of life above else, abandoning not only their own community, but everyone else whom their community infects, bringing Israel's entire health system and economy to its knees along the way? When 40% of those infected come from a group accounting for only 12% of the population, then the only possible explanation for this is unadulterated lawlessness. And if you enjoy the promo provided by the pandemic, then you'll really love the complete film, the one that will eventually do to the entire country what Haredi society is doing to itself today. The lawlessness is not only killing them and us in this terrible plague, it's increasingly destroying Israel's future. Aside from a few geniuses, there are no shortcuts for the rest who need to study a full and significant core curriculum as children. It's no coincidence that over half of the Haredi women, 53%, and over three-quarters of the Haredi men, 76%, who even dare embark on the academic track, which is usually at a relative low level to begin with, drop out before receiving a degree. For those who have not yet internalized the power of exponential functions from the COVID-19 infections experience, here is another lesson with regard to this function and its existential implications. As shown in the graph, the Haredi share of Israel's population has risen sharply from generation to generation. There are 3% of the first generation in the graph, 6% of the second, 13% of the third generation, almost a quarter, 23% of the fourth generation. According to the Central Bureau of Statistics forecast, Haredi children up through age 14 will comprise 49% of Israel's children in 44 years, less than 2 generations from today. As if the pace of demographic change in Israel were not enough, there is a multiplier that's hurling Israel even more rapidly towards even more rapidly towards the democratic point of no return. The Haredi leadership fabricated status as keepers of the faith instead of what they really are, yielded the Haredi parties 30% more votes in the last election than the sum total of all Israel's Haredim aged 18 and up. A population that does not receive a first world education will not be capable of maintaining a first world economy. Without that, there can be no first world health, education, and welfare systems, nor a first world army in the planet's most dangerous region. This is the future that's approaching at an exponential speed if we don't get our act together before it's too late. Despite the deafening and misleading clamor by politicians and much of the media, the real story in Israel is no longer one of left-right, religious, secular, or Arab Jews. Anyone who still believes that it's possible to implement a core curriculum in Haredi schools as part of a cooperative agreement with Haredi leadership, a coterie willing to sacrifice the lives of its own community during a terrible epidemic just to maintain its hold on power, has no idea what about the kind of people with whom we are dealing. Keeping their followers in the dark with regards to facts, evidence, and a serious education is the cornerstone of their hold on power. Saving Israel's future apparently rests on the shoulders of the rest of us, on all those determined to preserve the future of the only home the Jewish people have. We receive such opportunities only once every 2,000 years, so we need to wake up while we still can do something about it. There is no reason why a still large majority should continue to finance a minority insisting on a lifestyle jeopardizing its own future as well as ours, period. All schools need to study a full core curriculum, and all public funding must be completely stopped from reaching any schools that do not do so. But that's not enough. Public funding must be completely terminated to any downstream yeshivas and organization accepting graduates of schools that do not provide a full core curriculum. We've seen what happens to Haredi fertility and employment rates when funding is even partially reduced to a very poor community unable to sustain itself without the public dole. After decades of trying to reach agreement with the Haredim, their exponentially changing demographics leave us no option other than the cold turkey approach, a complete termination of funding, a lifestyle that deprives children of a sufficient education. It's the only way to stimulate significant internal soul searching within the community, for which the concept of accountability and responsibility has been foreign until now. The upcoming elections need to yield cooperation between all remaining sectors that understand what kind of a trajectory we're on, and for which Israel's future is important. Each of us must demand that the leaders of the parties that receive our votes work together in as broad a coalition as possible, one that is founded upon 3 basic tenets: comprehensive structural reforms of the education system, currently the worst in the developed world, even without the Haredim. 2, reforming Israel's system of government to facilitate governance, accountability, and enforcement of policies along a strong array of checks and balances, and 3, legislating constitution that will set in stone Israel's underlying tenets and make it difficult for anyone who may one day try to move us backwards. Amen. And I want to talk about something that really disturbs me also. So we have a problem with extremists taking over. And contrary to other countries, most of the people here are not extremists. So why are we in this position? You hear the prayer? We have a lockdown, but most synagogues are actually closed. But these guys downstairs continue. Well, they think that it's more important to pray than learn about science. So anyway, so the ultra-Orthodox have not been cooperative. I want to show you a picture that's shocking. You see this? Palestinian indicted indicted for murder of Israeli woman in West Bank. So this Palestinian murdered this 52-year-old mother of 6 in December. It's a horrible murder. Esther Horgan, he murdered her. But there are details. I don't want to get into the details, but on Wednesday, the High Court of Justice gave its permission for the demolition of his home. And this man has a wife, 3 children who are minors, as well as his parents. So they say this is it's like family. So 2 of the justices said there was no case for interfering with the military's decision. One judge wrote the family members' prior knowledge for raising a home, but added this is not necessary condition. Consideration. This is a measure to be taken after for a particularly brutal murder was committed with a clear nationalistic motive. Horgan's family said in a statement after the indictment, the incitement by the Palestinian Authority motivates the murder, calling for more aggressive actions against the PA. Yes, but this is collective punishment. This man is a murderer. You know, I don't want to get into the details of what he did to her, but why do his children, his elderly parents, okay, let's say, and his wife have to be without a home? They're destroying his home because of the action of him, of this man. I mean, can you imagine that, like Ted Bundy, a serial killer, they destroy the home of his parents? Take any murderer and just destroy the home of the family. So this is called collective punishment. And however, this is a despicable murder. The collective punishment is not justified. I don't think it prevents murder. A man who decides to murder, I don't think he thinks about the fact that his children will be without a home, without a father, that his elderly parents will be without a son. I think the point is that his children will, I don't know what's going to happen to his wife and children. And for sure, if we want Palestinians to hate, they're going to hate even more. They're going to be even more in a situation which is even more extreme, because if we're trying to heal, if we're trying to prevent violence, if we're trying to prevent people from choosing to murder, then, which is, I don't even know how a person could even begin to think this way, but definitely if these children are going to be growing up, and I don't know how, I mean, their children, what do their lives have to do with his? Why do they have to destroy his home? I mean, he's in prison. Why do the children have to pay the price for his action? Why do children have to pay the price for his action? His elderly parents, his wife. Why? I don't see the logic. There's so many cases of violence. Like there was a case of also much, much less, of course, but the extreme Jews who have harmed Palestinians or murdered them, their homes weren't destroyed. There's no criminal whose home was destroyed. So this is racist and against basic human rights. He's a murderer. He should be in prison for the rest of his life. But why destroy the home of his small children. I mean, this is collective punishment, and I don't really think it helps to prevent more violence. I mean, think about it. It's like it's collective punishment. So, what justification is for collective punishment? And this is a caricature. This is horrible. This is the bedfellows of Bibi Netanyahu extremists. And these are the ones who are going home. And this is the elections. So, this is the big problem. The coalition, I mean, Israel is supposed to be a democracy, but is there representation for people that think, for the majority that is secular, for the majority that is pro-democratic? No, there isn't. Absolutely not. You hear this, synagogue members are just screaming around and yelling. They come from a settlement in Samaria, and they just make so much noise every Saturday. It's like a nightmare. I don't dare go out. I just wait until they go home. They have 2 homes. They live here, and they make so much noise. I mean, we're under lockdown, and they let their kids scream around and yell. I mean, so insensitive. And I mean, would you want to learn about the Bible from people that are extremists? The one who runs the synagogue, I got information, hasn't even been drafted to the army because his opinions, political opinions, are too extreme. The rabbi was in prison for inciting violence. I mean, just violence just doesn't ever cure violence. Ever. As Gandhi said, what is it? Oh, revenge makes the whole world blind. Yeah, just, I don't know. I feel like I really don't have a choice. Like, these people are in the street right now. They're standing in the street and praying. And I used to like religion, and now I'm just like seeing it as politically motivated. There's so many things that it's hard to explain to people from outside of Israel, like why we don't have marriage that is not religious. A Jew can marry a Jew, a Christian may marry a Christian, and a Muslim can marry a Muslim. But there's no, we don't have like marriages that are secular. You can't marry in a city hall, and I think that is unbelievable. But let's hope that change will come. Let's really hope. And it's just really astonishes me that people that lived through so much persecution and violence in World War II can behave this way. I mean, collective punishment has so many horrible connotations in my mind. Think about it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with how harsh the crime was. You get the worst rapist, child murdering, abusive person. You don't destroy the home of his children and his parents. That's just wrong. And it's not that I'm defending him in any way at all. Murder, it's a horrible murder, but to destroy the home of his children just doesn't make sense to me at all. And I just don't understand how other people can't see that. The people that are in that settlement, how they cannot see how their behavior sparks more hate. That if you punish people that have nothing to do with the crime, that just makes them more hateful, because it's a sense of injustice, thinking, what did I do to deserve this? His children are thinking, what did I do to deserve the fact that I have no home? What did I do to deserve having to look for a home? It's not enough that they lost their father, that he has to go to prison because he's a despicable human being. Now they have to also have an added stress that they don't even have a home. It's not like they're going to celebrate, is it? It doesn't mean that they're going to celebrate the murder. I mean, of course, it's more complex because these murderers get payments from political extremists, and it's not like it's not like he did it on his own. But still, we have to think of the big picture. Do we want to be like the murderers, or do we want to be better than them? Revenge is never a good thing. Prevention is the best way to go forward, in my opinion. I think I've also reached the conclusion I really don't want to talk politics to people I meet in the street or anywhere. And my way of dealing with things is just to stay home. And I think the coronavirus really helped me just to want to stay indoors, not deal with things, not to confront people who are different than me. I have certain values that are important for me, the way I grew up. And there's no point in arguing with people that have completely different views. But like this man who wrote the article said, it's really sad that people prevent their children from having knowledge of science and math. And it's really sad that our school system is also very disappointing. And I'm just thinking where we go forward. Where do I fit in this picture? And my conclusion is there's no perfect place on this earth. I think in Europe there's also injustice, but I think just have to think about how to go about this, and I'm definitely going to think about what I can do for my life to make my life more meaningful, and what I can contribute to society in the best way. The best way is not to get into stupid arguments about politics, but just to say what I think calmly, and just to ask people questions and get people to ask questions, ask whether they think it's going to really be a good solution to destroy a terrorist's home, punishing his children and his wife and his parents, if this is a way that's going to prevent more violence. And if they say yes, I don't know, then you have to ask them, really, how? How do you think it's going to prevent more violence? How do you think it's going to prevent people from hating you if you take revenge on people that are not responsible? The children have nothing to do with it. You can say, okay, maybe his cousins, or there was a story about his family, being involved, but the children, minors, I mean, the whole family didn't participate in the murder, so why, it's not like the children stood by and watched their father murder this woman. I don't know. And let's say the children were standing by. I mean, they're minors. They're small kids. What do they have to do with somebody's decision to act in violence? Just really find it highly disturbing, this whole concept, and the fact that there's such a consensus on it. Anyway, let's think better thoughts. But it's still part of the society in which I live. Yes, I'm not directly affected by this, but it's around us, this energy. I want to surround myself with good energy, so I want to say to everybody, peace, light, and love. And remember, rather than to argue and get upset, try to take time out to think about things. Stay in your room and take time to think and not react. And as my yoga teacher said, one of my yoga teachers, ask yourself every time you want to talk, are these words of peace? So I think every time I talk to a person, I will always have to do this test. Do these words promote more peace? And I'm just hoping my thoughts also in this YouTube will promote more peaceful thinking, when people might think about how we can actually improve things and what measures we can do to change a reality for the better. Peace and love.